Again, we would like to start by thanking you again for joining us for our breast health education webinar, My Journey with Breast Cancer. And without further ado, I will go ahead and start by introducing our expert for today's session, Shelita Anderson. Shelita Anderson is an oncology certified nurse with more than 2 decades of successful experience in healthcare, leadership, and nurse empowerment. She has her master's degree in business administration and a Bachelor of Science in Nursing. Ms. Shelita has worked for the Harris County Hospital District for over 9 years, caring for indigent patients, and she currently works for the Memorial Healthcare System as the System Oncology Patient Care Director. She oversees the nursing education, the navigation, and the survivorship. She's a patient and nurse advocate. Shelita seeks opportunities to address disparities in healthcare. She has led many projects and initiatives that address barriers to care. She's also developed and has oversight, for accommodations and transportation programs for cancer patients that were birthed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Ms. Shelita is very passionate about the work with community partners, to address prevention, surveillance, and survivorship in communities that need education, information, and resources. Ms. Shelita enjoys serving others, writing, and family fun. Ms. Demetra Stevenson will serve as our moderator for today's session. Ms. Demetra Stevenson is a native of Omaha, Nebraska. She now resides in the city of Cleburne, Texas. She has over 20 years of experience serving individuals in the social service and criminal justice system, assisting those suffering with chronic homelessness, severe mental health disorders, as well as intensive substance abuse issues, helping them reintegrate back into society. As a servant leader, Demetra's passionate leadership and heart for God's people has allowed countless individuals in her community to be blessed by the resources of the kingdom, both naturally, emotionally, and spiritually. Ms. Demetra is the founder of Vessels of Honor Ministry, and she has also established Kingdom Wealth Distributors, a ministry that seeks to bring the kingdom resources through teaching and training and how to best serve marginalized and underserved communities. She currently serves as the president of the board of directors for Texas Christian Community Development Networks and Region 6, Dallas-Fort Worth. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ms. Demetra. And then we also have our beautiful survivors, Ms. Betty Ashford. Ms. Betty Ashford's a 3-time cancer survivor. Big applause to that. Ms. Betty Ashford is a woman who has spent more than 47 years of her life as a professional healthcare provider. She could have never imagined that her journey of a compassionate advocate of healthcare for all humanity would become her banner. Breast cancer was her second diagnosis. Detected through a routine mammogram in June of 2017. Being an African-American woman herself, Betty is concerned about the disparities of breast cancer treatment for minorities and the poor. Ms. Betty, thank you so much for joining us today. And last but not least, Ms. Annie Wolf. Anna Marie Wolf is a 46-year-old accountant from Fort Worth, Texas. She's a mother of 4 and a 1-year cancer survivor of stage 2 invasive ductal carcinoma. Ms. Annie has a passionate heart for people and is eager to share her journey to healing and recovery. Her life's work is to share her own and past experiences through her own life, assisting individuals in walking in a life of freedom and wholeness in every area of their lives. Ms. Annie is our second survivor that is joining us this morning, and we are really, really excited and thankful to you both for joining us, for sharing your journey, and for giving us insight of the challenges that you have had through your breast cancer journey. So without further ado, I will go ahead and pass on the torch to Ms. Demetra Stevenson, who will be moderating today's session. And I thank you again for joining us today.
Great. Greetings, everyone. It's just such an honor and a blessing to be able to be a part of this crucial conversation regarding breast cancer awareness. I'm just eager and happy to be amongst these survivors that have fought their way through, and just excited about the conversation. There's so many things that plague us, and we don't have the correct information how to navigate through these times. So I think this conversation is so much needed. So just welcome. I'm glad to be a part of this panel with Dr. Shelita, Miss Ashford, and Miss Wolf. So without further ado, we're just going to go ahead and get started. I want to talk a little bit about, our survivors, and just kind of want you all to kind of share your stories. We'll start with Miss Annie Wolf. Annie, we're just so appreciative for you to be on the call this morning. I know that I have the honor and the privilege to be able to walk a little bit of the journey with Annie when she first received her diagnosis. So Annie, just if you could unmute yourself for us, and on this morning, if you could just give us just a brief synopsis of your diagnosis, what the journey was for you, and just kind of share with us your journey through breast cancer.
I discovered cancer while I was in the shower in December of 2021. So I had to wait through the holiday season to get to see the gynecologist and then go on to see the surgeon. I ended up having 2 different types of cancer. Fortunately, they were very close to the outside of the breast, but I still ended up having to have a mastectomy. I didn't have any lymph node involvement. I was still recommended to have chemotherapy as a preventative to keep the cancer from coming back because of my age. I went through 4 sessions of chemotherapy and I'm still on ongoing treatment to prevent the cancer from returning. I lost my hair. I didn't lose a whole lot of weight, unfortunately, but I did lose my hair. It was a traumatic but a survivable journey, and I think that's something to encourage hope for all of us, that it is a survivable journey.
That's good. So Annie, just can you tell us a little bit about, when you first received the diagnosis, because I know that it probably was a shock. And how did you feel when you first received the news of your breast cancer diagnosis, when you first received the news that it was cancer? What were some of your initial thoughts? What were some of your initial emotions? Can you kind of share that with us?
I think it's a lot like the grief process, with shock and disbelief and anger and fear and cycling through those emotions in hours and days. And I was very scared. I'm a single woman. I didn't have any other form of financial support. I was worried about the doctors, the insurance. How was I going to afford the treatment? How was I going to take off of work? How was I going to get there? I lived by myself at the time. Just all of the logistics of how does a person go through cancer with what I saw at the time as a minimal amount of support, which, as you mentioned, you were instrumental in that. And so was my son and other members of my church and my community to come around me and help me to walk through that.
That's good. I'm glad that you bring up that point, and I want us to further go into that conversation, because I know that a lot of times when we get the diagnosis of different things, fear hits, and you just shared, we don't know what to do. We don't know how to feel about it. How crucial in your journey was that support system for you, being able to navigate through that time?
It was absolutely vital. My work was wonderful. I got the time off that I needed. They paid me salary during that time, but I had friends that would take me back and forth to chemotherapy. My son did chores when I wasn't feeling well, and people brought me food. I was very blessed and to have that support. And I think being honest and vulnerable with the people around me and telling them what I really needed and not trying to be that tough person through that was a big part of letting people know how they could support me and not just saying, I'm okay, I've got this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So support is very crucial.
Yes, absolutely.
Because sometimes I feel like in our communities, a lot of times we tend to want to hide these things. We don't want anybody to know about it. So we kind of suffer in silence, if you will. And so
Mhm.
I think that that was very key when you said that I had to be willing to, be vulnerable enough to say, hey, this is what's going on with me. I'm scared. I don't know what this journey is going to look like, but I need those individuals to walk with me. I think that's very, very crucial. So when you think about even now, just real briefly, looking back now, what do you know? What do you know now as a survivor, that you wish somebody would have shared with you following your diagnosis? Because I know a lot of times we go into things, but I believe that sometimes people can say hindsight is 2020, and sometimes we kind of had all of these emotions and all of these things, and then looking back on the journey, it's like, what was I do? What did I? So can you kind of share with us, if you could go back, what are some things that you would be able to share, or you wish that you would have known, or you wish that somebody would have told you, um, moving forward, if you had to do it all over again?
I think the first one would be to take advantage of all of the resources that are available to you. Go online and look for nonprofits that are willing to help you to pay for transportation and medication. There are a lot of resources out there aimed at helping women with cancer through all walks of life. The other one, which is kind of silly but practical, is don't let Dr. Google be your doctor, and don't
That's good.
don't scare yourself silly on the internet, and do your research in the proper way by asking the questions of the doctors and the healthcare professionals that actually know what they're talking about, and they know what the latest science is and what the latest medication and protocols are. And don't spend your time steeping yourself in negative thought processes and fears from reading on the internet.
hmm That's good. So it is survivable.
Yes, absolutely. It's even thrivable if you do it in the right way.
hmm So Annie, did you have to have any surgeries or anything like that?
I had a mastectomy and I had my ovaries removed. Uh,
Mhm.
the uh, the treatment for blocking hormones, my cancer was hormone positive, and the treatment would have interfered with some other medications that I was on that I couldn't stop. And so I had my ovaries removed. And then, of course, I ended up having chemotherapy.
Okay. Can you kind of share with us briefly about some of the women that may be out there that have the fear of the mastectomy? Because I know that it possibly has the potential to kind of attack womanhood. Tell us just briefly, what was your journey and emotion through that, and how you kind of journeyed through that whole emotion of that, of the breast, the removal of the breast, and how you journeyed through that and came out on the other side, or even if you're still processing through that, can you kind of share with those, because I know that as women, sometimes that may be our fear, and can you share a little bit about that journey and your process through that?
Well, at first, I think there was a lot of shame involved.
Mm,
It was an uncomfortable conversation. People tend to ask what they don't realize are intrusive conversations, and sort of having to kind of toughen myself up to that and understand that they came from the right place. I will say that there are wonderful prostheses that are available, and unless I tell people, they don't know that
mhm,
I have only one breast.
mhm,
And so I kind of had to ask myself, would I rather lose my breast or lose my life? And
mm,
I would have gladly given both of them to retain the life that I currently have and be able to watch my grandchildren grow up. And so I had to reconcile the shame with just the practicality. When people lose a hand or a foot or something else, it is what it is, but it means that they get to live.
that's so good. That is so, 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 so good. Annie, we are so proud of you and the journey and just, the fight. I have to say, and I'm a little biased because I watched you. I watched you fight. I watched you, come out on the other side of this like a trooper, and so we're just proud of your journey. We're proud of, you coming out on the other side and you being a voice for others that may be coming behind you. So thank you for sharing that. And of course, we're going to continue the conversation with you as well. So Annie is our new survivor. You've been a survivor now for 2 years, right? Or is it a
A
year?
year.
It's been
Just
1 year. So 1 year cancer survivor. Yay! 1 year cancer survivor. So we're so proud of you and just excited about the journey ahead and what is ahead of you and before you. So thank you so much for sharing your story and your journey with those. And
absolutely.
we'll look to talk to you more. Miss Ashford, how are you? If you can go ahead and unmute for me.
I am blessed to be here. I am just truly elated. I mean, what an opportunity.
Yes, yes, we're so glad to have you. And you are a warrior. I think I heard them say 3 times cancer survivor. Is that
Yes,
right? Is that
that
right? So
that is
can you go ahead and share, just introduce yourself, share a little bit about your journey with us?
what an interesting journey. Let's just say if I had to write it, I wouldn't have written it.
Ooh.
Oh no, wouldn't have written that story for me.
Hmm.
But I have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ.
Yes.
And I figure, and I know for a fact that anything that he sends your way, he has already prepared you for that journey.
Hmm.
So my first diagnosis had to do with, I want to say, a misdiagnosis. I actually had gone to a doctor for a little small pimple. It was about the size of a stick pin head. And when you have something in your mouth and it's abnormal, and my tongue would always go to the roof. And I was like, what is this? And I actually, and that's not written in the journey, something that I want to share. I actually seen a doctor um, outside of the Houston area, and he basically patted me on the head, sent me on, and said, "Oh, nothing. Don't even worry about it." Well, what happened was worry about it started growing bigger. And I actually got a chance to see a dentist in that same area, but a different hospital, if you will, who evidently had some knowledge of head and neck cancers and made the referral to a specialist, if you will. I have to agree with what Annie said, thank God for good insurance. And a
Yes.
biopsy was taken, and the doctor said I had some good news and bad news. The good news is it's right there, one spot, hadn't gone anywhere. The bad news, well, I don't treat cancer here. And that started my journey in the medical center, if you will. Initially, I thought, misdiagnosis, cancer. Wait a minute, we don't have cancer in my family. But I was proven wrong. And that was, I want to say in 2000, it's been a while, 2007 or so. And I called my breast cancer that was diagnosed in June 2017. I call it the bridge between the three cancers. And believe it or not, and it is so vital to have the mammogram mobile units travel around to the community. I was so busy working till I discovered I had missed a few years of getting a mammogram done because I was just busy. And believe it or not, I looked at, ladies, you're gonna love this one. I looked at the color of the mammogram unit. I said, wow, it's purple and blue and white. And I said, what? It's no line. It is no line. So I scurried up. It was basically lunchtime, and I went over and checked in with the ladies that were performing the mammograms. They said, well, you know, the crowd is gone if you have time. So went upstairs, checked in, and went back downstairs. And that's when I received a routine
Wow.
mammogram. So we do need to take the mobile units in the community, even if it means at individuals' jobs.
Mhm.
And so I'm so grateful for that. The only challenge that came about, and that was due to Hurricane Harvey. That's why I call it the cancer number 2 is the bridge between the other two. It connected it. That was a very challenging time. And then after getting treated and with the plan, incorporating with the doctor's plan, and what I love is when physicians and healthcare specialists involve the patient.
Mm.
They make them part of the treatment team.
Mm.
And of course, the last cancer was colon cancer, which is definitely devastating for us. We lost a sibling to colon cancer. But I want to reflect back to the breast cancer. What happened after getting the mammogram, you give them your address and they will actually send you a notice, not diagnosing, but the advice is we see something that you may need to have more extensive examination. The only snag and breast cancer, my breast cancer journey was quite a journey because I was dealing with Hurricane Harvey at the same time.
Oh, wow.
Plan was to get whatever I needed done and return back to work. And it turned into numerous amount of months because the actual surgical site from having a lumpectomy, after having all of the specific tests done that was recommended along with following radiation treatment. And because of the infection that I sustained from the water and Hurricane Harvey, it was a total thing. I was referred to the wound clinic. I had sustained a over 12-inch deep wound that my sister had to learn how to pack because it was no staff. I mean, everybody was displaced during that time. Great challenge for me. My mom, who was totally bedbound, was alive, and quite a challenge to be rescued from your home in a boat. But this journey, I wouldn't trade it for nothing in the world. If anything, it motivates me to help others, no matter where they are in their journey.
Yes, that's so good. I think I heard you in the introduction. It was a statement that was said that you never would have thought that my banner would be breastless. Talk to us a little bit about that.
I am definitely an advocate for all humanity, especially women and minorities. I say that, and the poor, because there is a lack of service and a lack of information that's being given to them. They don't have access. They don't have access, and I'll be honest with you, with given the history here in our country, they're afraid because it may not be the correct information being distributed. So they're really reluctant,
Right.
you know, almost have a limb falling off before they will go somewhere for any kind of test. So
that's a conversation we need to have.
Okay. So let me say this. Big Mouth here is ready to help spread the news for all humanity.
That's good. I heard you say, and I'm gonna ask you this, and then we want to have a conversation even with Dr. Shelita. Um, you said that it was important to make the patient a part of the team. I believe you were talking about the team of your diagnosis and all of that. Talk to us a little bit about that for those that may be going through that. When you say that it's important for the treatment team. So
Right.
talk to us a little bit about how you were saying it's important for them to make you an actual part of that treatment team as well.
I'd like to say is the patient, normally there's a different atmosphere for the patient when they walk into the doctor's office. They're very anxious. My note to anybody that's getting ready to embark on breast cancer or whatever journey, to make notes of questions that they want to ask of their doctors. And also to not just go for the first thing they suggest. What are the alternatives to getting a lumpectomy? So is there? I had one doctor saying, "Oh, Miss Ashford, don't worry about it. You got the garden variety of breast cancer." I want to say, look, I don't want none of it. Garden or non-garden. You know, he was trying, I'm the kind of patient, yes, you can joke with, because he was saying it was so localized. And after they did all the studies, they definitely removed the lump in a healthy margin of tissue around it, in addition to the lymph nodes. Okay. So it makes the patient more comfortable, because when they leave, they just as lost, because they're using so many medical terminology, if you will, instead of bringing it on a level where the patient can understand it.
That's good. So what I'm hearing you say, to encourage and empower people to advocate for themselves.
Exactly.
And I think that that's with anything, I'm not shifting, but, I deal with people with mental health, and sometimes the doctors will just say, here, take this pill, or do this, or we're going to cut this off, or we're going to do this. And you're so trusting of that doctor that you're just saying, okay. And so, I would encourage, and I believe that's what I hear both of you ladies saying, to say, no, advocate, ask what is do jabata do to whatever.
Yes.
I'm saying, what is that? You know what I'm saying? I'm not a doctor, so ask the questions and get to a place where you understand what it is, so that you can feel more comfortable going through this journey, and don't feel intimidated because you don't know the information, and you just walk out of the office, and like you said, I'm still as ill-informed as I was when I went to my appointment.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, Miss Betty, Dr. Betty, we thank you so much for just sharing your journey with us. It's so encouraging, so motivating. Such a pillar in the community, and I'm a very firm believer. I'm a believer as well, that I truly believe that God has us walk through journeys and situations because somebody else is coming behind us, and they need to see a model to show that you can make this out of this. And I truly believe that you and Annie have both exemplified that, to say it's okay. And I hope that those that are on the call today are getting that message. If you may be walking through this journey, or you may know somebody that's walking through the journey, that you can see that it is something that we can journey through, and you can come out on the other side. Amen. Even if it's a year. And how many years, Miss Betty? 26 years? You're muted. If you can unmute for us.
I'm still counting. I'm counting, and I'm hanging in here. The last cancer was 2018, 2017. So I'm good. I done rung so many bells. I'm wearing this around.
Yes.
They didn't had to put me in the survivorship program.
Yes.
Look here. I don't want some bills. Give me my certificate. I want to put it.
Exactly. I love it. I love it. I love it. We appreciate you so much, and thank you for sharing your testimony with us, both of you ladies. Thank you so much. Dr. Anderson, we thank you so much for joining this crucial conversation. We thank you just for your expertise. We thank you for your service in serving in this capacity. So can you just share with us, just introduce yourself, let us know how long have you worked in the healthcare, just a little bit about your journey, just introduce yourself to us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ms. Demetria. I would first like to say I'm so grateful to spend this time both with Miss Annie and Miss Betty, because that's what gives me the energy and the motivation to do what I do. But I've been in healthcare now pretty much for over 3 decades for sure.
Wow.
I am an oncology certified nurse, and I've been certified in oncology since 2001. So I've been doing that for a while, actually started oncology before then. And so I have this passion, this drive to care for people who are going through this journey, if that makes sense. So my doctorate study that I did was on African-American women and the knowledge gaps related to breast cancer screening. And so that study was absolutely awesome. Again, that's what my doctorate is in, for nursing. And so in this journey, I found so much about where there's a knowledge gap as it relates to what can be done to take care of yourself for breast cancer screening. And then just listening to both Miss Annie and Miss Betty's story, it just resonates with me about the things I've known about oncology patients, and that fear is a huge factor. And some of the studies show that as much as 77% of the women that are going through breast cancer within that 2 years of treatment will experience some levels of anxiety and fear, right? And so having worked with these patients so many times, we want to be able to help them through that journey, if that makes sense. And then even at Memorial Hermann, one of our goals is that no patient will fight cancer alone or be in that battle. So we provide those oncology nurse navigator services. And I believe I heard Miss Annie as well as Miss Betty talk about what resources are available to me. And so we want to make sure that they have the resources that are necessary. And don't be afraid to get a second opinion. I think that's the main thing. Regardless to who is talking to you, make sure that you have a physician that's going to listen to you.
That's good.
I believe someone mentioned that about the biases associated with that in the literature for racial biases. And it might not be racial, it may be other biases, but it doesn't matter. That is your body. And so I tell every patient to look at what we call shared decision making. And I'm a shared decision making person. Even with my family, we look at what the situation is. I will offer them the support and the expertise that I have on that. But at the end of the day, I want them to make that decision about their body. So if somebody's telling you something about your body that doesn't resonate with you, I especially heard Miss Betty talk about the spiritual aspect of it, because you're a tripartite being. You have a spirit, a soul, and a body.
Yes.
And so you have to make sure that something just doesn't feel right or sound right to me. Don't be afraid to ask more questions, and find out what it is in you, that question that you have, So that's just kind of like a little overview. But that fear, I wanted to touch on that just a little bit, because fear can stop you from going to the next level. It could be that you had one mammogram and you didn't like the experience of that one mammogram. So you're like, no, For Miss Betty, it was seeing the pretty purple and stuff and nobody in line. So we have all these triggers that we have. But at the end of the day, I love the work that's being done through TSU around this breast cancer prevention, because out in the community, speaking to the women, asking these key questions so that we can impact this community.
I think that's so important, Dr. Anderson, just in my dealings with those that are in the homeless communities and just dealing with, especially in those areas, you have the ones where you're dealing with in the shelters and all of that. And some of these women, have never been to the doctor in years, you know, let alone a pap smear, you know. So to go get a mammogram, you know, is something that is, they don't even think about that. And so I think that it's so important that you were saying that, encouraging them to understand that this is something that's important. And I mean, even in all honesty, well, they told me I was in the range to get it, but I just got my own little mammogram. And I didn't know what to do. I said, do I put it on the tray? Like, I don't, you know, I didn't know what was going on, you know, but
Yes.
I had to be able to understand just how important it is. And one little trip to a bus can be the determining factor that can be your life. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? And so, can you share a little bit more with us? You know, what do you believe are some more of the unique challenges and disparities that women face when it comes to breast cancer prevention, early detection, treatment? And I think we talked a little bit, but
Yes.
you know what, that fear,
Yes.
you know, can you talk just in your dealings with women and you know, your journey with dealing, what have you found just in your studies?
Absolutely. I believe trust is a big factor to me. As I've done this work, one of the things I had to do is kind of shelter the work I was doing around health equity, even from a professional standpoint, right? It's not a time for the clipboards and the numbers, even though we're going to collect numbers while we're there. It's more about, can people trust you? I had to develop culturally relevant education myself because I could not find what I to believe culturally relevant education was that would speak to the women that I was addressing, if that makes sense. And so, yes, there was literature everywhere, but there was just one line that say, the cases are higher for Black women, and that's all it said. And I felt like there needed to be more information to say, this is how it affects you specifically. And in that writing and journey, I created a brochure as well as a comic strip. And in that comic strip, there were two women talking about, should I get my breast cancer screening done? At the end of course, they decided to get it done because, you know, nursing student Dr. Anderson at that time was intervening to share with them how important it was, how important they are. And I think Miss Annie made a great point when she talked about shame.
Yes.
That's something that's been huge that I've always looked at, you know, working with companies that make special bras for women and prosthesis for women, where I've had people come in and talk to my staff before so they can understand where we can send patients, and patients sitting there crying, just crying for an hour because I don't know if my husband's going to want to look at me like that. My body image, what does that mean? These are all very relevant, but I love what Miss Annie said. She made a comeback. She was like, it was either my life or this breast. And I think that was very, very powerful. And then listening to Miss Betty talk about going through the hurricane, how powerful can you be in floodwaters, in amidst infection and jumping on boats to survive this? These women are true warriors and true survivors.
Absolutely.
And so just seeing how the women need that push to say, I'm there with you. It's like a coaching. I'm right there with you. Call me if you need some help. And I will say that nurse navigators, oncology nurse navigators are very helpful there, as well as healthcare workers. Ms. Demetra, I think that you work in the community as well. So you have healthcare workers that say, I'm right there with you.
Yes.
Call me if you need to. I got you. You know, I don't want you to be ashamed. You can talk to me about it. And I think getting the ladies together to have a discussion is just powerful.
Yes.
So I like that. I like working with the group. So yes, it was a part of my study, but it was more of connecting with the women, if that makes sense.
It
And
makes
I had
perfect
to guard
sense.
that. I had to guard that because everybody wants to jump in, you know, and make it feel like, well, what is she doing? Well, why can't I do? So we'll roll it out to everyone, but we need to first establish relationships and trust.
I think that that's so key, you know. I know I share. That's why I was so glad that Annie talked about the shame portion of it as well. You know, because I know even in our communities, when it comes to cancer or anything, you know, I don't know. I know in my own personal community, even in the Black community, that stuff, it comes with a cloak of shame, right? And it has the tendency to make you hide it because you don't want anybody to know. And so I know that in my journey, you know, just briefly with Annie, when Annie let me know that she had breast cancer, I don't, as much, you know, I'm like a case manager, social worker. I'm just trying to find the resources, you know,
Yes.
how we gonna deal with this? Let's get rid of it, you know.
Yes.
But I didn't know what to do. So all I could do was say, I'm going to the appointment with you. I'm going to this with you. The more I can know and learn is the
Yes.
best way that I can support you, you know,
Mhm.
because I can't support you from, so let me hear what they're saying. Let me walk this journey. Let me feel the emotions. Sometimes I didn't know what to say, you know, what do you want me to do? Or, you know, I'm just here, you know, and I think that that's so important and vital. And sometimes too, you know, if you have people that don't know what to say, sometimes set some boundaries because it's a traumatic experience already. And if we do have support people that don't know how to be there, just say, I don't know how to be there.
Yes. Yes.
So I think it's on both sides of that. So I thought that was just so vital because it comes with a lot of trauma. And I feel like the advocating and the shame and the walking to, it's such a big journey. And so I feel like we need to make sure that we're balanced and supporting
Yes.
the women, even when we don't understand, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think the support group, I think both women mentioned support that they got from their family. And then what about those that might not have the support that they have, right?
Yes.
Feeling comfortable to reach out again to the organizations, to those oncology nurse navigators. There are support groups available in several organizations, right? And then finding the fit for you, I think is important to your mental health as well. Do you feel comfortable, you know, with the group that you have joined? So don't forget about your support. Call all of your supporters.
Yes, I believe that's so important. You know, and I want to talk to even those that may be on the call today that may have, I feel like we need to talk about those that are not, don't have the breast cancer, but those that are going through the journey
Yes.
with somebody that has breast cancer, because I feel like there may be fear associated with that as well. Because you want to say the right things, you want to do the right things. And I know for me personally, and I don't know Dr. Shelita or anybody else that wants to speak to that, you know, just educate yourself with the person, you know, because sometimes, you know how something happens if somebody passed away or somebody say, I'm got a diagnosis, sometimes people just kind of go ghost on you because they don't know what to say or they don't know how to be there, you know.
Yes.
You know, what are some of the things that we can encourage caregivers, because
Yes.
there are caregivers out there that's, you know, these ladies push through it, but sometimes the situation is not, you know, it can turn detrimental. And how do I care for you? How do I support you?
I love that you brought that up, Ms. Demetria, because caregiver strain is a true phenomena. It is absolutely, so the caregivers need support as well. And in many of the services, for example, like hospice services and all that, they provide services for the family, you know, even after the diagnosis. And then I also feel like people should not be afraid of hospice services, right? Because you can also come out of hospice services.
Yes, that's
But the
so good.
benefits that go along with it are very, very powerful and will also go along with your family, right, from a distance. One of the things that I've also focused on is what are we telling the children that are affected by this? And don't think that they're not, because they hear and they know. And so how does a parent share that with a young child? In many of my studies, I found that children accept it much better if you don't hide from them, but you actually talk to them and share with them, you know, what's happening, what's going on, the details that those children need. I am not an advocate for just broadcasting to everybody that may not support you. As people of faith as well, you know, that can be a barrier to, so to speak, because you have faith, you don't want to say anything to anyone, right? But you need to say something to your doctor. You need to say something to those people in your support system and in your group that are helping you, and continue to use your faith. So those are all very important pieces, but don't forget about the caregiver. Do we find relief for them? If we know that they're Monday through Monday, Friday through Friday, you know, they're every day, they're there caring, do they ever get relief? Does Does anybody
Mhm.
give them permission to go to
Mhm.
the store? Does anybody
Mhm.
give them permission? You know, most of the time they don't give themselves permission. So we have to be like helpful to say, I'll come and relieve you tomorrow so you can go relax yourself without them feeling guilty, if that makes sense, because they experience guilt and shame as well.
That's so good. That's so good. You
Yeah.
know, Annie, I know that you have children. Did you in opposed to what Dr. Anderson was speaking about, did you run into any of those hard conversations and as it relates to your children or even your family as for that matter?
I think my kids were, they're in their early 20s, and they really didn't have a full understanding of what I was trying to tell them, but I
Mhm.
did my best to be honest but positive,
Mhm. Mhm.
and not to show a tremendous amount of fear and uncertainty, but to be okay. This is what the doctor said. I waited until I had a clear diagnosis and a treatment path. This is what the doctor said. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're expecting to happen, and we're going to make it through this as a family.
That's good. I think that that's wonderful. You know, I love what you said. I waited until I had a full understanding, you know, because sometimes, you know, we could hear something. And I think that let's just be honest, you know, when we hear cancer, especially when cancer first, let's be honest, what's the first thing that comes to our minds?
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know, I'm gonna die. You know, so can we just be honest? You know, a lot of time, even now, you know, that's the first thing that
Mhm.
comes to your mind. So I know that a lot of times when you're sharing that with family, sometimes we have to get a clear understanding because we can put people in panic mode. You know what I mean? Oh my God, mom is gonna, when
Yeah.
it's really something that we can make it through. So I thought that that was really wonderful that I got the full diagnosis of what is being said so I can articulate this to my family and we
Mhm.
can actually go through it without this panic, fear, anxiety. Um, you know, we're just going to take the things as they come and take the journey together. So I think that that's wonderful. Miss Betty, did you experience any of that as it relates to family or any of that?
I was very blessed, being the eldest of 8 children in my family. I have two sisters, Charlotte and one I call Peaches, the youngest. And I had a backup crew, which is my nieces, Stacy, Keisha, and Tiara. And they were there. They were there. You really do have to identify your support group.
That's good.
And I'm just grateful. You may have what I call an inner circle, the ones that are closest to you, and you're sharing more intimate information of what the doctor's saying, what the treatment plan. And then you may have an outer circle um, sharing maybe kind of general information. And you're so right. People like panic. First thing they think when you say cancer, I'm gonna be honest with you, they look at you, see how soon you're gonna be dying. I mean,
Mhm.
because yeah, when somebody at a certain hospital or medical center, we're gonna send you there, boom.
Hmm.
So you really do have to equip yourself first, even before you talk what I call it the closer circle, whether it's like Miss Annie, her son, or family, and in my case, my sisters and my nieces. So uh, identify your support there.
That's so good. So good. Just want to encourage everybody that is in the audience, if you did have any questions that you wanted to ask, we have about less than 10 minutes left. If you want to go ahead and put those in the chat. We have a couple of questions. I think we've answered these.
Mhm.
Um, what advice would you have for others who may be newly diagnosed or currently undergoing treatment for breast cancer? What specific questions or uncertainties arose after learning about your diagnosis? So I believe we kind of went into that.
Mhm.
But just, you know, as in the last couple of minutes that we do have, um, looking back now, what do you know now that you wish someone would have shared with you following your diagnosis? So, you know, I believe I asked that to Miss Annie,
Yes,
but
you
Miss
did.
Betty, Can you go ahead and answer that question for us? What looking back now on all of the journey, what are some of the things that you wished that you would have known, that someone would have told you, to make the journey a little bit different than what it was?
I want to say each individual's journey is different.
Mhm.
Each and just because, let's say Annie's journey, you know, she had a son and other individuals there, myself being the eldest, no children. But what you do is you learn to identify who's the most important to you at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And once you reveal your diagnosis, I'm gonna be very honest with you, some people might disappear. You know, they're afraid themselves. They don't want to be watching you, oh, so-and-so got cancer, they're gonna die, you know. They don't want to look at that. So don't be afraid to kind of, you know, do a one-on-one talk with them and see where they are and explain that, you know. And most of the time, the Lord will send you really the one that's going to be there and the ones that are not. My thing is get a strong relationship with the Savior. I depend on Scripture.
Good.
By his stripes, I am healed. And it became more real for me because what I envisioned, one of those stripes that Jesus took on the cross had my name on it.
That's so good.
Ashford, you are healed no matter what they say. Come on. Yeah, help me, doctor. Anyway, so that's what got me through. If people want to know how in the world could this woman live through 3 different diagnoses, the bridge one, I thought the breast cancer was the bridge of both of them. The bridge that brought me over safe was my belief in Jesus Christ. There is over 197 or 200 some scriptures in the word, whatever translation you could understand, gravitated, start putting it on a sticky note, but no matter what they're saying, you stay focused on you are healed.
That's good.
You're healed. You know,
and I think it's so good to know, you know, you talked about those walking away, but we understand that he'll never leave you nor forsake you. And so, you know, through that, that's something good that we can share. And I think that Dr. Shelita talked about spirit, soul, and body.
Yes.
And it's very key for us to connect, you know, so that we're not only taking care of this physical body, but we're mentally and we're emotionally stable. You know, before we close, we got probably 2 minutes. I think we're going to turn it back over to Zor. But Annie, can you talk real briefly about the mental part of that for you?
I'm bipolar 2, and I was already, I mean, I'm on medication, and I was seeing a therapist weekly. And so I had 8 years of stability in my mental health condition, and I had already had a lot of tools in my toolbox dealing with trauma. With that being said, had I not had those resources already on board, it would have been vital for me to go through my nurse navigator and find the support groups and to connect with other women that were going through it and other survivors to help to really talk to people who had a full understanding of what the journey of cancer is like, because there's nothing like somebody else who's walked through it to be able to commiserate with you on that deep level that someone who loves you but it hasn't ever been through it may not be able to. And so those resources, talking to people, not journeying through it alone, are so important.
That's so good. I love what you said. I had tools in my toolbox.
Yes.
If I need to go to a therapist, I need to talk to a therapist. If I need to do this, I need to
Yes.
do that. Miss Shelita, Dr.
Yes,
Shelita.
thank you so much, Ms. Demetra. Just one thing, 1 in 8 women, according to the statistics, will have a breast cancer diagnosis, right? That's what the statistics say. I will say also, when I talk to medical doctors and oncologists, early is better. So the earlier you can get screened and follow those directions and don't be afraid will also help with your prognosis, if that makes sense.
So
And I
good.
just definitely wanted to say that to be the most powerful thing is the earlier, the better. I would
Yes.
like to say that.
Yes. So thank you, ladies, so much. I really pray that those that are on the call that are encouraged, you know, and this breast cancer that is really a bully, that we can stand up against this Goliath because of the call that we had today. Those that may be journeying through this, that we can knock him out with these rocks. So hopefully we gave 5 smooth stones. Come on, somebody. Now y'all tapping into the minister side of me, but we could give 5 smooth stones and hit this thing called breast cancer in his head. But to know that we have the support of those in our community, to find the support that you need, early detection. Look for the purple what you say, Miss Ashford. We gonna look for the purple bus. And we're going to go get early detected so we can knock this thing out. Breast cancer is not going to have us. We can be victorious over it. And the women on the call today are a prime example of that. So thank you all for listening to this conversation. And we're going to hand it back over to Miss Arden.
Thank you so much, ladies. I have to second everything that Ms. Demetra and Dr. Shelita said. Miss Annie, Miss Betty, you both are true warriors. I mean, I feel so inspired, and to hear your journey, to hear your diagnoses, to hear all of the challenges that we came about, and to see your spirit today, and how you've overcome and continue to overcome and continue to fight. I mean, it's so powerful, and it gets me excited. I talked to Ms. Demetra, I talked to Dr. Shelita, and we're always really just excited. How can we help? How do we help bridge the gap? How do we inspire more women to get screened? You talked about the purple bus. We work with the pink bus, the Rose. And so we have a very close relationship with the Rose, where we partner and we get that mobile unit to churches. We get that mobile unit to libraries, we get it to community health centers. And so we're really just trying to meet the people halfway. How do we make it accessible? And so that's where we are at today. We also partner with Houston Methodist Hospital. And so if the mobile unit can't make it to you, guess what? We have options. We have 7 Houston Methodist hospitals that surround the Houston area where you can get your mammogram at no cost. And that's the beautiful thing about our program. And even with Miss Shelita, they also have a similar program where they offer no cost mammograms. And so it's so important for us to talk about it and to go meet people so we can spread the word, because there are so many resources out there. And you'd be surprised. I mean, I go out to the community a lot. I talk to people, and when they hear free, they're like, what? Free mammogram? And so I think it's so important for us to continue doing this, to continue having these conversations so we can spread the word about how important it is. And like Dr. Shelita said, early detection is key, right? The chances of surviving are so much more higher if we get that early, if we catch it early. So I want to thank you for sharing such intimate moment in your life. I felt like, I think it was Ms. Annie that said it's thrivable, or Ms. Betty, I'm sorry, what somebody said, it's thrivable. So many inspiring words that were said during this conversation that just resonated, but also important. I think both of you really tapped into the things that we don't talk about, how we get, or where this takes us on a personal level, emotional level. And so I thank you for that, because it gives me perspective. So that way, when I'm talking to community members or someone is feeling XYZ way, I can be there in the right way. And so I really do thank you for sharing your journey, both of you, Ms. Shelita, Dr. Shelita, for sharing your expertise, Ms. Demetra, the same thing, for sharing your expertise. We truly do appreciate you taking time out of your Saturday to help us raise awareness on the importance of breast cancer screenings, advocating for your bodies, and the list goes on. I feel like we can we need more than an hour for this conversation. But with that being said, again, just a huge thank you, Ms. Demetra and Dr. Shelita. I couldn't have done this without you. It is because of you that we're having this conversation with our wonderful survivors. So thank you. So the last thing I will do, I promise we're wrapping it up. I know we're 5 minutes in. Let me just close it out for you all. If I can get my technology to work. So with that being said, as you all know, a lot of the work that we do happens through outreach. We get out, we partner with entities so that way we can continue raising awareness. Next month, which is literally next week, we'll be hosting a back to school fair in partnership with Baker Ripley. We're going to have a lot of resources from immunizations, lots of resources with commercial, medical insurance, free blood pressure checks. We're going to have Aetna, CVS, just a lot of important partners that are going to be offering a lot of resources to the community at no cost. If you're able to join us next Saturday at Baker Ripley, please join us. And then September is Prostate Awareness Month. That is another important conversation that we need to be having, and we ask that you join us. We'll be here in Houston. So we ask that if you can join us, even live via Zoom, please join us. And then of course, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We will be hosting a huge event where we're also going to be offering free mammograms, free cervical screenings, and so many more services. So if you can make it, please join us. That will be October 20th at the Texas Southern University. And then for those of you that are joining us online as community health workers, please make sure that you sign the evaluation forms so that way you can get credit for attending today's visit or session, I should say. One of the things that I didn't talk too much about was a resource. Dr. Shelita actually created this wonderful breast resource booklet, and I believe my colleague here, Amir, has uploaded that onto the Q&A box. So please, if you know anyone that might need any breast cancer resources, you know, whether it's having someone, you know, anything with breast cancer related resources that you may need, you're going to find them. There's like 5 pages worth. There's so many resources. If you need funding of some sort, you will find some resources available there. If you need someone to talk to, it's going to be a great resource for you to tap into. If you know someone, again, that is a resource that you want to share. So please click those links, and a lot of the information that we've talked about should be uploaded on that Q&A box. And I will wrap it up here. If you know someone that needs a mammogram who is uninsured or underinsured, our program will cover the cost of that mammogram. If you need follow-up following that mammogram, we continue to assist you with the cost of that as well. So just a friendly reminder, mammograms you start at 40 years of age, and then of course you want to make sure that you start getting those mammograms on an annual basis. If you want to contact us, feel free to scan the QR code or email or call us, and we look forward to hearing from you all. And thank you again for attending today's presentation, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Saturday. Thank you everyone again, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. What an honor.
The honor is ours. Thank you.